Hey guys, Spud here, as always, and today we get to take an early look at Reflected's Speed and Angels campaign, a DCS World adaptation of the documentary of the same name and in conjunction with its original creators. Today we are looking at Mission 1, a mission in which we need to become familiar with flying the F-14B Tomcat in the aerobatic flight regime. This will probably be one of the most challenging and yet rewarding campaign missions you have ever played in DCS. You will learn a ton about flying the F-14 Tomcat, and of course about flying specific aerobatic maneuvers as well. Because I absolutely live for aerobatic flying and competition, we're going to be periodically pausing the gameplay today to talk about how we can best fly each maneuver to impress Paco, our instructor and backseater. And then we will self-eval every maneuver to show you guys what I could have done better to best impress our instructor. So that way you'll be ready to tackle these maneuvers when you hop into this new and very fun story-driven campaign. Alrighty guys, let's go ahead and get started with showing off Reflected's Speed and Angels campaign. Alrighty guys, let's go ahead and get started with campaign mission number 1 here.
Alright Slick, on this first flight I'll be in the backseat. There's no stick back here, no one to save you should things get hairy, but I've got tons of experience in this beast and I'll be able to see trouble before it gets too bad. We'll go up together, I'll talk you through a few maneuvers, and if you pass, you'll be with Instructor Rios until you graduate. Sound good?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. Let's go. After you strap in, make sure you ask for the power to be plugged in so we can talk through the intercom. Let's start her up.
Yes, sir.
Alright, Paco, give me 1 sec to enjoy the ambiance of this campaign. I love how much work Reflected has put into making DCS World feel alive. That's definitely one of the bigger complaints new DCS World players have, is that DCS feels very cold and dead. But Reflected has done a great job here of making it feel alive and populated. So while those Hornets are doing their Hornet thing, we'll go ahead and start up our jet. We're just going to go for a normal startup procedure today. We'll call up the ground crew.
Chief, turn on the ground power. Copy. Chief, connect ground air supply. Ground power is now on. Copy. Ground air supply is now
Alright, we can hear the air from the Huffer start to flow through into our ECS systems, so we know everything is connected and ready to rock and roll. We'll arm our ejection seat, and we'll ask Jester for a normal startup.
ICS com check. Roger.
I absolutely love the Jester interface. Just being able to move my head with track IR is just so much nicer than having to use like a hat switch or something of that nature.
Closing canopy. Check. Okay, ready to start.
Looks like hooks are all engaged. Beautiful. I'm going to turn off the mirrors here, save a little bit of frames here at Nellis Air Force Base with all these models around us. And switch on our displays here. And first off, we'll crank the right-hand number 2 engine. Now, I may be in the minority here, but I personally prefer the physical tapes that are in the F-14A over the digital tapes that are here in the F-14B. But it's certainly a worthy trade-off to get the raw power of our GE F-110 engines, that's for sure. Alright, we'll not taxi until INS alignment is complete. Now, if I haven't mentioned it yet, just like all Reflected's other F-14 based campaigns, Jester will cut out for us after we complete our startup procedure here, and we no longer actually need to talk to Jester to get systems up and running. From there, the scripted Rio, which is going to be Paco for today, he'll take over and actually start doing the actions in the aircraft that are required. So you don't want to be talking to Jester as the mission progresses, or you may mess something up or counteract something that Paco needs to do as the scripted AI that's bringing you along through the story of the mission. Alright, we'll go ahead and crank number 1. This ground crew over here is looking very casual for being next to a starting up F-14. Alright, beautiful. Introduce fuel. And there's the light off and the spike. Beautiful. While that's stabilizing, we'll go ahead and go around the cockpit and make sure that we're getting all of our switches and bits and bobs ready to go. Move it along the cockpit. We'll uncage our radar altimeter, set that to 5,000 as per the mission briefing for this exercise. Give us a nice deedle as we break the 5,000 foot hard deck on our maneuvers. Our altimeter, we'll get the altimeter setting with the ATIS in just a moment here. Uncage our standby ADI. Coming on around here. We'll get our external lights on. Boop, those are on. We'll get our bleed air coming through our ECS for pressurization of our cockpit and keeping us nice and comfortable. And we will disconnect electric power as well as our air supply. Before I do anything after startup, I always go right to the air supply and make sure that I get everything disconnected from the jet, so that way we don't start dragging any tractors or huffers along with us as we start our taxi. That would not be a great way to impress our instructor here. Make sure that our wings are nice and swept to 68 degrees for our taxi, because we got ourselves a very narrow little taxiway here between these trucks and equipment and our fellow Grim Reaper jets. Alright, coming through here. Now, big thing here is we're going to have to fly a departure procedure out and away from Nellis Air Force Base today. So let's get set up and ready for the Dream 6 departure. That's what we've filed for our flight plan today, and that's what I expect that we will get. So we'll set up, so take off from runway 3 right, fly runway heading to intercept the Las Vegas TACAN radial 031, then direct to Harem intersection, intercept the Boulder City VORTAC radial 344, then direct to Juneau, cross Juneau at or above 17,000, then via assigned route. Cool, so there's Juneau at or above 17,000. We got Boulder City down here, channel 114 X-ray. And guys, something to note that'll trip you up a little bit is whenever you see a VORTAC that has no description as to whether or not it is on X-ray or Yankee, it is by default on X-ray. So make sure that you keep that in mind. So we'll kind of crank our necks here with track IR to see our TACAN for 114, and we'll go ahead and increase our volume here.
Is the alignment complete? Okay, good. When you're ready, I'll call for taxi.
Cool. And with our Morse code there, we will able to positively identify Boulder City. That's good because of the kind of bowl that we're in the mountains in the Las Vegas Valley here. We just want to make sure that we're getting good reception with Boulder City. Alright, and with that, we will set to the 344 radial out of
Ready to taxi.
Boulder City. Alright, so Jester's ready to taxi. I'm not quite ready to taxi yet. So, as an explanation here, guys, the departure procedure here has us intercept and fly a radial from the LSV TACAN station, which is co-located between the runways here at Nellis Air Force Base. because I'm not going to have access to Jester, I'm only going to be able to access one TACAN frequency very, very quickly. So we're just going to fly runway heading, which isn't incorrect here, so flying at a heading of about 031 degrees. Then when we reach about 10.8 DME from the end of the runway, we'll see the 344 radial, we'll see the CDI start to center up. We'll be at 7,000 feet, and then we'll make a left, nice gentle turn to 344 degrees outbound on the 344 radial to make it to Juneau at 17,000 or above. Now, the campaign will prompt us to switch over to waypoint navigation. However, I am not comfortable with that. We'll stay and fly this departure procedure as in accordance with the procedure itself, and then we'll switch over to waypoint navigation once we pass Juneau out here. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and tell Paco we are ready to rock and roll. And just one quick final sweep across the cockpit, just so that way we can impress our RAG instructor Rio in the back seat, who is actually a pilot. Nothing to do on the dogfight panel up here, so here we go.
Okay, ready. Set the HUD to takeoff mode.
Dunzo.
Okay. Adjust the radio volumes as required.
We're going to leave those fully up so that way you guys at home can listen to the awesome radio transmissions that are pre-recorded and baked into the mission from all the different characters.
Okay, done. Set the radar altimeter to 5,000 feet.
Already done.
Check. Turn on all exterior lights except for the formation lights.
Up. Done.
Okay. Check the ATIS on button 11 for the QNH and set the altimeter.
Arrival runway 21 right. Visual approaches in use. Advise on initial contact. You have information Bravo. Nellis information Bravo. 1315 Zulu. Winds 210 at 8 knots. Visibility greater than 10 miles. Few clouds at 9,000. Temperature 70. 2.35. Altimeter 3011. No sig. Departure runway 03 right. Arrival runway 21 right. Visual approaches in use.
Alright, 3011. And we also have a perfect tailwind for our takeoff today, but that'll be nice when we return because we'll have a nice perfect headwind coming right down the pipe of the runway. We won't have to do too much in the way of crosswind correction, which is probably a good thing now that this is our first flight in the F-14, at least canonically, that is.
Okay, done. Now it's clearance, Gunfighter 1-1, ready to copy with Bravo. South 4.
Gunfighter 1-1, now it's clearance. You're cleared south here via the Dream 6 departure, then as followed. Squawk 4021, departure frequency will be 273.55.
Squawk 4021, departure 273.55, Gunfighter 1-1.
Alright, we've got our craft clearance.
Read that correct. Contact ground on 275.8 prior to taxi.
And we got our Dream 6 departure as filed, so that's going to be nice. We'll know that we can expect that.
Gunfighter 1-1 at Foxtrot, ready to taxi with Bravo.
Gunfighter 1-1, now it's ground. Turn left Foxtrot, right Alpha, cross runway 03 left, hold short, 03 right.
Left Foxtrot, right Alpha, cross 03 left, hold short 03 right, Gunfighter 1-1. Okay, here we go. Tap the brakes when we start rolling to make sure they work. Then widen the rudders to make sure the nose wheel steering is functioning.
Copy.
Alright, nose wheel steering is on. We'll ease off the brakes and we'll ease up the throttle a bit. Brake check is good. Nose wheel steering's good. Make sure we keep our nose right on the center line here because We've got ourselves a pretty tight little corridor between us and the other aircraft and some support equipment. We can't trust the center line, so we also have to be looking out.
Checklist. Brakes.
Brakes are good.
Check okay. Accumulator pressure's up.
Fuel.
Got more than Hornet.
Need auto transfer. Dumps off. Feed tanks full and go set.
Canopy closed. Locks engaged. Lights out. Stripes aligned. Handle in closed position.
Closed. Locks engaged. Light out. Seal inflated. Handle in closed position.
Seat on, top and bottom. Command eject aft. Strapped in. 6 wings.
I'm on top and bottom, showing MCO in the window.
SAS.
All on.
ATLS.
On.
All circuit breakers set.
All miners set.
Master test.
Off.
BiDi.
Normal.
Compass. Standby gyro. Altimeter.
Compass synced. Standby gyro erect. Altimeter set.
Wings.
Swept.
Trim.
Set 000.
Harness lock.
Mine's locked.
Controls.
I'll get it on the runway.
All warning and caution lights out.
Miner out.
You ready to go?
Not quite, Paco. Make sure that you definitely don't tell him you're ready to go before you're ready to go, because he'll start going through the before takeoff checks when you haven't even come to hold short yet. Now we can see some handsome aggressors over there. That's pretty cool. I'm not sure why so many guys walking around here have rifles, but I guess increased security posture. And we're coming up to the hold short line here. Alright, all checks are complete, so just review this guy one more time. That's the 344 radial, we got that set. We got the tack can set. That's good to go. We've got our spoiler brakes are set to both. That should be it.
Ready.
Nellis Tower, Gunfighter 1-1, holding short, runway 03 right, ready to go.
Gunfighter 1-1, Nellis Tower, wind 210 at 8, clear for takeoff, runway 3 right.
Clear for takeoff, 03 right, Gunfighter 1-1. Okay, let's spread the wings, spoilers, and anti-skid, flaps to maneuver, take the runway, and stop on center line.
Flaps coming down, wings coming out.
Wings at 20
We got clearance, check.
Maneuver.
Check.
Spoiler module
Good.
on. Spoiler brake selected.
And make sure that we got plenty of runway in front of us and none behind us. We're gonna stop on the old center line.
Now hold the brakes, throttle up to mill power, and perform the control wipe up.
Here comes the wipe out. Left, right, forward, aft, free and correct.
Okay, now release the brakes, and as the plane accelerates, let it fly off the runway with just a little bit of RAF stick. Once the nose lifts off, let the mains come off the runway, up the nose slightly, and quickly raise the gear so we don't overspeed. I am at a shallow angle so we can accelerate, but keep it below 450 knots if you can. Remember, we don't need the burners in this B model. This plane's a beast.
Yes, sir.
Make sure the nose wheel steering is off by 100 knots.
Flaps are up.
We'll go.
And got a little squirrely on the takeoff. We'll watch our airspeed here. We're flying runway heading. Putting a little off that runway heading. A little bit of nose down trim required.
Dallas departure, gunfighter 1-1 with you, south 4.
Gunfighter 1-1, Dallas departure, radar identified, climb to 7,000, maintain 350 knots, low heading 344 with truck stop and resume on navigation.
Gunfighter 1-1, copy all. Switch the steer command to desk to have the waypoints displayed on your HSI. Truck stop is waypoint 1. Also switch the HUD to cruise mode. Roger.
Okay, coming up on 1,000 feet to go. We'll start to bring the nose down a bit. And we're too fast. Oops. Here comes the CDI. So we'll start making a gentle turn. Alright. We're now past Harem, 7,000 feet or above. Heading towards Juneau, 17,000 or above. Yeah, we're going to go to the left, of course.
Switch to waypoint 2 on the HSI, which is Juneau. Climb to 17,000 feet.
Alright. And we kind of cut that turn a little bit short. We'll get ourselves back on course here. Then we'll switch over to waypoint navigation. And you guys will see the difference between the navigational performance of the ground-based navgates versus what we have for the departure.
And it totally changed my life. I was hooked from the very first second, seriously. She's an amazing bird, legendary for good reasons. A true pilot's plane. If you can learn to master her and deal with her quirks, you'll prove yourself to be a very good pilot. Yes, sir. Today's the first step along that journey. Concentrate on the details. Conquer the minutia. The little things matter when you are working to become a Tomcat pilot. Let's have some fun, but remember, if you don't learn to fly the Tomcat properly, she'll end up flying you.
That's for sure. Cool. Alright.
Agent 2, just want to make sure you can make your descent present position to apex.
Wow, I've never been this busy before.
Right, there's 5,000. We got 2,000 feet to go. $1,000 feet to go.
Gunfighter 1-1, approaching Juneau, contact blackjack on 377.8.
Gunfighter 1-1, switching. Blackjack, Gunfighter 1-1 at Juneau, checking in as Bragg. Gunfighter 1-1, Blackjack, you're cleared into South 4 from surface to 35,000 feet. Contact Blackjack when ready to RTB. Gunfighter 1-1, Wilco.
Alright, and that releases us from our altitude restriction.
Lucky Speak, which is our fixed point. It's going to be the bullseye for today's mission. Let's get familiar with this beast. Get yourself level at Angels 15, 350 knots.
Alright. And we're totally fine with that because we're now released from the altitude restriction on the departure procedure.
Flight 7, Golf 17 Heavy Line clear. We're flight level 200 in the blocks, 190, block 210, altimeter 2.
And the faster we can get ourselves set up and ready to rock and roll, heading to Stuckey's Peak, we can start with our various maneuvers. Now, in your ingress towards the maneuvering area, inside of the NTTR MOAs, you just want to be real careful with your fuel consumption because you're going to use a lot of gas on these maneuvers, especially the vertical maneuvers where you're going to need a lot of burners. And we want to make sure that we're not going to run out of fuel by the end of the mission, because of course that's part of the test here from Paco, is to make sure that you can keep track of all that good stuff. And we don't want to run out of fuel on our first mission flying the Tomcat, or sortie I should say. Alright, there's 15,000, 350 knots, almost there. We get right towards Stucky's Peak, should be a heading of 360. Now with these maneuvers, it's really important that we're trying to get our headings on nice cardinal directions, things that are just very easy for you to see as the pilot in the Tomcat. And this is true when conducting maneuvers in any aircraft. When you're trying to really nail stuff, it really helps, rather than trying to look for, say, something that's hard to see on our VDI or our HUD here, whereas 360 is going to be perfect.
Okay, ready.
Hey, Slick. Before we get started, let's see how good you are with the departure and spin procedures. You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, good. Let's hear it.
Now?
Hey, you said you were ready.
I've had this interaction with instructors so many times, and I absolutely love this part of the campaign. And it's like, they ask you a question, you're just like, now? And, you know, they expect you to know things down so cold that you don't have to think about it. You can just spout it out, even while you're performing maneuvers and things of that nature. So, let's see here. We got stick forward, neutral, lateral, harness lock, throttles both idle, rudder opposite, forward, stick F, definitely not B. So let's go with A here.
Upright. Stick forward, neutral, lateral, harness lock, throttles both idle, rudder opposite, turn needle yaw. If no recovery, stick into turn needle. If yaw rate steady increasing, or spin arrow flashing, or eyeball LG sensed, roll fast on, stick full into turn needle and aft. If recovery is indicated, controls neutralized, recover at 17 units AOA, thrust is required. If flat's been verified by spot attitude, increasing yaw rate, increasing eyeball LG, or lack of pitch and roll rates, canopy jettison, eject. Inverted. Stick full aft, neutral lateral, harness locked. Throttles both idle, rudder opposite turn needle yaw. If recovery is indicated, controls neutralized, recover at 17 units AOA, thrust is required. If spinning below 10,000 feet AGL, eject.
Alright.
Alright, nicely done. Let's continue.
Okay, so if you get that incorrect, you're actually going to get a lower grade from Paco at the end of the mission. So it's important to know all this stuff about the Tomcat, which is awesome.
360-degree turn. First, roll left, then stop the roll. Then smoothly pull the stick back to set 5 Gs while you add afterburner as needed, adjusting the angle of bank to keep your altitude plus or minus 200 feet. Roll, then pull. 2 separate motions. Nice and smooth.
Alright, so let's pause it real quick and talk about making a nice steep turn here in the F-14. Now, she's probably the hardest airplane to make a nice, smooth, steep turn in, right within our parameters in DCS World, because we don't have a beautiful modern HUD with a nice velocity vector to keep us right on the horizon. So the best way you can do this is to just place your waterline indicator on your HUD here, right on that horizon, and try to keep it there as long as possible. Now, Paco isn't going to be too mad at us if we break our altitude a little bit, but he is going to be mad at us if we break our airspeed and we break our nose coming off the horizon. So another thing that he said is 2 separate motions between roll and pull. This is kind of the fundamental of making aerobatics look really nice, whether that's for Paco in our back seat here, or it's for judges on the ground, or your aerobatics instructor who's flying with you, teaching you how to make real nice maneuvers. So what we want to do is we want to roll, and then we want to pull. For the reason is, if we try to roll and pull at the same time, like we might do in a more dynamic kind of maneuver, like say we're in a dogfight, we'd end up climbing into the turn and we'd break our 200-foot altitude restriction pretty darn quickly. As well as when you're looking at somebody flying aerobatics, whether you're in the airplane with them or you're on the ground, it will look a heck of a lot nicer when you have a separation between the 2 axes, whether that's your yaw, your climb, or your roll. And so rolling, hesitating for a moment to set that line of being rolled, and then starting to pull is going to make the aerobatics look so much nicer from the ground and from somebody else in the cockpit here. So it's going to be a 360-degree turn, and that's why we really want to have those nice cardinal headings. 360 degrees is going to be very easy to start on and then finish on. Same thing with, 270 degrees or 090 degrees or even 180 degrees going the opposite direction here. So we'll go ahead and unpause, and we'll talk about how I did here and what I could have done better. Oh, one more thing. The G meter for the Tomcat is way down here, and all of your main flight instruments are way up here. So because we can't feel the jet and we can't feel the G's, because in real life you can feel a good bit of difference between 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 G's, you can just kind of pull and modulate that based off of how hard you're pulling on the stick and the G's that you're feeling. Whereas here, you're not going to be able to do that so much. So maybe glance down there when you first start to pull on the stick for this maneuver, but don't worry about the G's too much. Paco is going to help you out in terms of, hey, pull more, or no, you're pulling too hard kind of situations. So I would more or less keep your eyes more glued on your primary flight instruments rather than looking down there at the G meter. You're just going to mess yourself up if you keep looking down in the cockpit. So with that, let's go ahead and do it, and we'll talk about how I did, and then if I passed it from Paco's eyes, we'll do it to the right-hand side. So away we go. All right. 3, 2, 1, and roll. Set. Pull. Need to pull a little harder probably here. Not too good this time. There we go. Now we're kind of set on the horizon. Losing some airspeed for sure.
Not as much angle back. Get it back up there.
Roger. Coming back. We got a little bit more to go. And roll out.
Increase your angle of bank. You're climbing.
Yep.
All right, well done. Now we'll do the same to the right. Roll, then pull. Let's go.
All right, so I was probably a little over violent with the rudders on that one, and kind of got the nose kind of yawing back and forth across the horizon. I need to be a little bit smoother on the rudders, especially here in the Tomcat. One thing that'll really help you guys with that, if you're having a hard time being a little too jerky on the rudder pedals, is to make sure that you're seated not too close to your rudder pedals, but also not too far away. Make sure that you have the balls of your feet right on the bottom part of your rudder pedals. And so that way you're not accidentally pressing on those toe brakes. So that motion of accidentally pressing on your toe brakes, it can mess up your actual fine motor skills of controlling those rudders nice and smooth. And then make sure you're wearing some shoes that can glide across your floor very easily, whether that's hardwood or carpet or whatever you've got for your home cockpit setup. So that way you can glide your feet real nice and smoothly across the ground as you have the balls of your feet right on the bottoms of those rudder pedals. So normally when we do competition turns, we always want to do those turns to the left-hand side, but Paco's going to make us do it to the right-hand side today as well, because when you're flying a military jet in a combat situation, you got to make right-hand turns as well. So we'll go ahead and get set up for that. Nice setup on our altitude, our airspeed, get everything set and ready to go. Don't let Paco rush you. There's no rush to start the maneuver. However, we do want to make sure that we're not using too much gas. So here we go, guys. Let's go ahead and get ourselves nice and set up.
Okay.
There we go. And make sure. All right, 3, 2, 1, roll. Set that line. Pull. Right on the horizon.
Figure 7 squawk 4366.
A little bit of burners here. Ooh, that's bright. Hard to see the horizon. Keep pulling, a little bit more right rudder, probably a little overbanked. Let's correct that.
If you want to fly the Tomcat, you're going to have to pull harder than that.
Yep.
Not as much angle back. Get it back up there.
It's hard to see exactly how hard we're pulling when we can't feel the airplane. 90 more degrees to go. And roll out. Right on heading this time.
Increase your
Push
angle
forward.
back. You're climbing. Next. As you know, we don't actually have ailerons, but
we still call this maneuver an aileron roll, because spoiler roll sounds stupid. We'll do one to the left, and then another to the right. You've done them before, but never in a Tomcat. Let's set up at 15 carry, 350 knots, pull the nose up 10 degrees, stop, neutral stick first, then all the way left. Try to stop exactly wings level. Got it? Let's go. Aileron roll to the left. Go.
All right, we'll pause it again. Again, that was probably not the most perfect, nice steep turn in the Tomcat ever. Kind of lost the horizon a bit in the sun over there, but we got to deal with all these environmental factors while flying the Tomcat. So we can't use that as an excuse. I felt like I was much smoother on the rudder pedals there, really trying to make sure I ride on the balls of my feet, using my heels to kind of modulate how hard and fast I'm pushing on the rudder pedals and letting them glide across my hardwood floor here in my home cockpit. As well as I think that through the 180-degree mark back there, I was probably overbanked a little bit and then corrected for it, ended up overcorrecting for it. And then rolling out in the Tomcat after these turns is always interesting because the Tomcat has a tendency to want to when you get that amount of lift as you roll out, it tends to want to come up on you pretty fast. So you got to actually push forward on your stick as you roll out from these turns, which is a little bit different and interesting. Now, for a lot of folks who fly in DCS World, when they do an aileron roll, they end up putting the nose of their jet right on the horizon, especially in the F-16 or F-18, where you got that beautiful velocity vector to put right on the horizon. But as we all know, as we roll into the knife edge, especially when we're upside down, and then into the second knife edge as we complete the aileron roll, and back to wings level, we're changing the amount of lift that we have up by a ton. And so when you do just an aileron roll pointed right at the horizon, we're going to end up with a situation where we are going to be falling out of the sky pretty darn precipitously. So if we can get our nose up and hike the nose up a little bit before we start the roll, then we're going to hopefully finish with the nose right at the horizon. And when you're doing a competition and an aileron roll is part of that competition, or even more importantly, a slow roll, if you're in a very slow airplane that requires a slow roll, it's really important to hike that nose up there first before you start the roll. The slower your airplane is, so if you're trying to do some aerobatics like in the B-51, the slower your airplane is, you got to park that nose up there higher before you start the aileron roll. So let's go ahead and hit it. Actually, first, let's check how far we are from the end of our MOAs here. And we're pretty deep into our area, so we're good to go here, I think, for a few more maneuvers. So let's unpause and go for it.
We'll go.
All right, so it's looking for stick all the way over, so full deflection stick roll. We'll get our way back to 15,000 feet. Get our airspeed reduced back to 350. Definitely don't be afraid to pull your power back to idle while flying here. We want to try and save as much gas as we can so that way we can make it back home. On my first fly through of this campaign mission, I definitely did not make it back home with enough gas, and that wasn't a good thing, that's for sure. All right, come on here. All right, close enough to 15,000. Go ahead and push the throttle up a little bit. Get back to 350. And we'll go 3, 2, 1, and 10 degrees nose up. Full deflection. And the Tomcat's nose wanted to stay up there.
Now let's do one to the right. Same setup. Ready? Roll right. Go.
Alright. And if we roll a little bit slower this time, our nose should dip down back to the horizon. There it is. Just like that.
Okay, roll's complete. Looking good. Let's get into the vertical maneuvers. This plane is a true dogfighter, and if you want to kick ass in the visual arena, you got to master the vertical. First, just a basic wing over. It's a really graceful, gentle maneuver where you'll reverse your direction of travel by pulling up into the vertical, pivoting on a wingtip, and come out of it going the opposite direction at the same altitude and airspeed. Understood.
So for me personally, wing overs are always rather difficult because you have to really modulate your speed. It feels like because you're going up into a vertical maneuver, like you're going to have to carry a lot of speed and a lot of thrust into it. But to make a wing over work correctly, we actually don't want to be going too fast through it. We want to make sure that we're not an afterburner in our F-14, and if you're in a slower airplane, it may not feel right to pull the power back to actually do a vertical maneuver, but in a wing over, you kind of want to get the airplane nice and slow out to when you hit that 90-degree point, because that way then your nose is going to run out of lift. You're going to have your nose slicing through the horizon and back down, and then you'll roll out nice and gently out to the 180-degree position. And this maneuver will be really nice because it's going to bring us right back towards our bullseye back there in the middle of our MOAs here that we're working with. And that way we don't have to worry too much about getting too far to the north here. So with that, we'll go ahead and get back to our 15,350 knots, and we'll go ahead and hit it.
Get yourself in the cardinal heading, north, south, east, or west. Same basic setup, 15,000 feet, 350 knots. When you're ready, begin a 2-3 G, pull straight up until we get to 45 degrees nose up, then start programming in some angular bank. You want to be at 90 degrees angular bank as you're halfway through the turn, then let the nose start pitching back down as you ease out the angular bank. Again, you want to come out of this flying in the opposite direction you started, but at the same speed and altitude.
Yes, sir.
You ready for the wing over? Alright, let's go.
Cool. So just like Paco said there, we want to have the nose naturally falling down to the ground as a result of us being at that 90-degree banked angle, so that way we have zero vertical lift and that nose is just falling down. If we're going too fast through this maneuver, or we've got too much power, like say if we plug the burners, then the nose is not going to want to fall naturally back down to the ground, and you'll have to force it back down to the ground, which will take you off of the vertical line that you're tracking through it and make the maneuver just look heinous on the ground, and it's very uncomfortable when you're sitting in the airplane, and Paco back there is not going to be happy at all. This is one of those maneuvers where if we mess it up and stall at that 90-degree point, we could potentially get ourselves into a either a inverted spin or just a normal flat spin kind of situation, so we have to be careful of that as well. And we have to be careful, of course, because we're flying a jet. We don't have any artificial wind over the tail, so if we run out of airspeed, our rudder's gone as well. So with that, let's go ahead and hit it and see how we do. This is probably going to be absolutely awful. All right, looking for our altitude and our airspeed here. So I would say probably definitely no more than mil power. Let's set mil power and then pull it back a little bit. And we're gonna go 3, 2, 1 and hit it. Pull up. 45. Start to gently roll the jet. Too much nose up there. And we can see as we come through it, we want to have that nose start to come down through the horizon. Just be patient, let it fall. Probably a little too much thrust on my end, a little more than 90-degree bank. There's 090 degrees, perfect, that's what we want. Coming down, letting the nose slice through the horizon, and we're just going to gently start to roll the jet out. Looking at our altitude, we want to bring the jet ideally back down to 15,000 feet. We're coming up, we got 10 more degrees to go. There's 180. Wings are level at 180, coming back down to 15. And whoop, back up to 15,000 feet. And a little bit low. Oh well.
That was pretty ham-fisted. Give it another shot. One of the common errors is starting a turn before you got the nose high enough. Try to get at least 45 degrees nose up before you begin programming the turning.
I'd actually say that's the best one I've done in terms of doing it here in the F-14. So, alright, so get ourselves slowed down because we really need to be nice and slow right at that 350, right at 15,000, or else we are never going to get that nose to slice through the horizon. Alright. There we go. 3, 2, 1, and hit it. See if we can get our nose from going too high this time. A little less power, I think. Starting to make the turn. There we go. Nose is falling a little bit easier this time. That's what we want. We want 270 degrees as our nose comes through the horizon. Beautiful. Oh, maybe a little late on that nose coming through the horizon, or a little early, I should say. Coming back down, checking our altitude, 21,000 feet. Coming back down, coming back down, coming back down. There we go. Start to pull the power back, check the altitude. Ooh, this one's much better. Wow. Start to bring the nose up. And 5,000. Beautiful.
Let's do one to the other side.
Wow, so that one worked really well there, guys. So as you guys saw on the first one that I did, I had too much power and the nose just stuck up there. It stayed up there, it stayed up there, it stayed up there. We want to be comfortable with the jet bleeding airspeed, because if we don't bleed airspeed, then the nose is never going to come back down through the horizon. We want to be, flying the aircraft by feel, but we also want to check our parameters for the maneuver, making sure that we're hitting that 90-degree point right off of our wing at 90-degree bank, and have the nose either at or just below the horizon. I was probably coming through the horizon just a little bit early on that second one. Then keep the jet rolling out, rolling out, rolling out. Make sure you're pulling the power a little bit back. Don't be afraid of getting that airspeed building back. We just don't want to break the 350 knot threshold. And then on that first one, I pulled back probably not hard enough to get the jet back to the horizon by 5,000 feet. We ended up breaking that altitude and going down to 4,000 feet. On the second one, because I was pretty confident on my airspeed and really nailing 350 knots, I felt comfortable pulling back a little bit harder on that one. And that one went pretty darn well. I'm very, very happy with it. So, let's continue on. All right. I guess he wants me to do another one. Okay, he wants me to do another one to the left. All right, let's try it. All right, speed still looking good. All right, let's make sure we get on our heading and on our altitude here, because like I said, guys, being on that heading and starting the maneuver is always going to be helpful. The better we can start a maneuver, the better we can finish it. It's going to help us see everything we need to see very, very easily. Come on, Jet, get down there. Tomcat definitely doesn't like to descend, I'll tell you that. Now let's check our map. Cool, we got plenty of room. All right, back to 350 knots. Okay. And 3, 2, 1, and hit it. Nose is parked up a little high. A little bit of left rudder in there. Overbanked. 20 degrees left to get the nose through the horizon. I'm going to cheat with the rudders a little bit here to really push that nose down. Check our altitude and our airspeed. Looking good. Not going to be too worried about the airspeed. I know it'll come back. Going to force this nose over a little bit. Cheating with the rudders a little too much here, so we'll ease off on the rudders. Check our airspeed, our altitude, it's all coming back. Whoop, there's our heading. And pull hard. Back to 5,000. Kind of forced it a little bit on that one.
Let's move on to the loop.
So, I don't know. I think my second one was the best one. That, you can kind of force maneuvers to make sure you're within the parameters, but a good aerobatics instructor, and especially a judge down on the ground, is going to see that you've forced it into those parameters as opposed to just letting the airplane fly the way it needs to, and you're just the pilot controlling it and making the airplane fly the way it naturally wants to. So I was really unhappy with that one because I really felt myself cheating with the rudders, really felt myself kind of like forcing the airplane into those parameters to complete the maneuver the way our judge in the back seat here wants it to be. But if you're on the ground, judging from the ground, that's just going to look really shitty. All right. So, all right, let's move on to the loop.
Basic shit here. Same setup at 15K and 350 knots. Plug the blowers into max. 4G pull, making sure you keep the wings level. Once your nose high and the airspeed begins to decay, intercept 15 minutes angle of attack and hold that as you go inverted and nose back down. Once the airspeed and G build back up, get back on that 4G pull and come out of blower to control your speed. You need to begin on heading north and come out of the maneuver on the same heading, same altitude, and airspeed. Okay, got it.
All right.
You ready? Okay, cool. Speed angle set. Blower in and pull.
All right. So a loop maneuver is probably the easiest maneuver out there, but it's also the easiest one to absolutely mess up and make just look horrible from the perspective of an instructor, and especially a judge, whether they're in your aircraft or they're down on the ground taking a look at you. Now, most players in DCS World, I've noticed, will pull hard, 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 and through the loop, and then until they see the horizon again, and then they ease off on the controls. What that's going to give you, especially looking at it from the ground, is more of a cursive L shape as opposed to a nice, beautiful circle like we've got here on our whiteboard that Paco drew for us. And so we have to be very, very careful that we don't pinch the loop at the top. Now, the way we do that is it's a little bit different flying a big jet like a Tomcat here, but we want to pull hard at the start of the maneuver, pull hard, pull hard, pull hard, pull hard, those 4 Gs coming up, 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 up. And as soon as we start to get onto our back and we can start to see that ground back there as we look up, we want to then let the jet float, let it float, let it float, let it float, ease off on the back stick. We want to actually feel like, 1 or only, and maybe even 0 Gs up over the top of the loop from about this point all the way here, here. And then when the nose starts to come back down to the horizon, you start to see the ground in front of your windscreen here. That's when you want to start pull hard, pull hard, pull hard, pull hard, pull hard, pull hard, and pull level there. Now, if you get a nice float here up over the top, and then you pull hard back here, you're going to end up right back on the same altitude if you're losing and gaining airspeed at the same rate coming from the beginning, floating over the top and pulling back through the backside here. Now, one thing that is also very, very easy to do when you are flying a loop is to turn that loop into a corkscrew, where instead of finishing over the same point on the ground that you started, you're then going to kind of make a corkscrew shape going sideways through the air and come off of your vertical plane and the vertical line that you're trying to maintain throughout the loop. And so the way that I go about changing this is I personally like to, instead of flying a loop with one hand on the stick and pulling back on the stick that way, I actually like to take 2 hands and put 2 hands on the stick. Don't worry about the throttle. You know where the throttle is. You can get back to the throttle really quickly in case you have an issue or anything of that nature where you have to, adjust your throttle setting. And what I like to do is like to take my fingertips, interlace my fingertips around the front of the stick, and pull back gentle, 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 gentle with your fingertips. If you yank back, you're going to increase the AOA, bleed off airspeed too quickly, and you're never going to make it up to the top of the loop. If you pull not hard enough, you're going to, end up with another big cursive L because you're going to come too vertical into the top of your loop. You're going to do one of these and then one of these, as opposed to a nice, beautiful circle here. And then, of course, if we don't float over the top, we don't start easing off of that, we're going to pinch it up at the top and make a nice cursive L like that. Now, one of the big issues with flying a loop, and that can get you in trouble, and it's going to be serious trouble in the F-14 Tomcat, is if we run out of airspeed at the top of the loop, we could get ourselves into an inverted spin type situation. An inverted spin is not comfortable, I'll tell you that. It's probably my least favorite maneuver to get into it intentionally. And in the Tomcat, it's very, very difficult to get out of, especially because you don't have any of that artificial air flowing over the tail, because we are, in fact, a jet, not a prop job. What can get you, it sounds strange and kind of like inverse as to what you would think, but what can get you into a situation where you run out of airspeed at the top is not pulling hard enough into the loop. If you don't pull hard enough into the loop, you're going to come too vertical into the top of the loop. You're going to bleed off airspeed quickly, and then you're going to stall at the top of the loop, and then that's when you're going to potentially get yourself into that inverted spin situation. So you want to pull hard into the loop, float over the top, pull hard through the back of the loop. But when I say pull hard, we need to pull back smoothly. And using 2 hands on the stick interlaced with your fingertips is going to allow you to pull directly back towards your belly button. So that way we don't bank our wings unintentionally and fly a corkscrew through the air, which is definitely very apparent to see from the ground. Not so apparent to see from the air, but it'll definitely make your loop look a lot better if we don't do a corkscrew through the air. So with that lengthy explanation and lengthy kind of set of tips and tools for you guys, let's go ahead and rock and roll.
Ready.
So we'll get back on our heading, get back on our altitude, back on our speed to start off with here. If you try to start these maneuvers from too fast or too slow, you're going to end up in a bad situation. You're not going to be able to complete the maneuver, and especially the loop here if you start from too slow. And if you start from too fast, you're just going to make the loop so gigantic it's going to be hard to control and modulate your airspeed throughout. So with that, burners, 2 hands on the stick, pull, hard, 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 hard.
Slick, nice work. Check your wings parallel to the horizon. Keep that 4G pull till we hit 15 units AOA. Alright, we should be heading exactly opposite the compass heading we started from. Make sure you keep
float, 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 and pull hard through the backside.
As you can to visually catch the horizon. Keep coming in to scan the instruments and AOA till you can do this 100% by feel. Make sure you're at a burn. Get in that 4G pull, but no more. Start modulating your altitude and airspeed from here on to end up on the same heading, airspeed, and altitude as when we started.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Yeah, that was not great for sure. So what we ended up doing is we ended up floating a little bit too late in our loop there. I kind of pulled aggressively at first, which is what we want, but kind of kept it too aggressive as we came up and over the top of the loop, and ran out of some airspeed there and kind of pinched it off a little bit. And as a result of that, we didn't get ourselves a nice, beautiful circle. We got ourselves more of that cursive L kind of shape. And we can see that evidence by really kind of getting our airspeed way down low. We can keep our airspeed up if we start to float, ease off on that G over the top of the loop. And with our afterburners, that's going to accelerate us over the top of the loop. And then, of course, we're going to accelerate on the way back down. Now we're pull hard on the backside because as we're accelerating coming down, we're going to have to increase the G, increase. Otherwise, we're going to break through our altitude and not make it back to our original altitude. We ended up actually doing okay, coming back to 15,000-ish, but it wasn't great. So let's see if we can try that again.
Not great. Let's try it again.
Yes, sir.
All right.
236, just be advised, we're at Angels 26.5, and we're number 2. Check those code switches safe and 06 code.
I'm going to wait until that guy goes away from our headset. And then we're a little fast, so let's pull power back. Right, beautiful. 3, 2, 1, and hit it. And float, 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 float. Coming down, floating, 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 and pulling, 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 pulling. Check our parameters. Pull, 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 and finish. Nice. Not bad.
Okay, cool. Loops are done for now. Let's get into half cubing. The first half is the same as a loop, but once you get your...
All right, so before we get into a half cube in here, let's talk about what happened on that one. So I saw that we were coming up over the top. We were not gaining our airspeed back as fast as I thought we would, coming kind of floating over the top there. But then on the way down, I saw that our airspeed still wasn't coming back at the rate at which I wanted to come back. And we were kind of at that, probably still pulling a little too hard on the stick, actually, coming back to the backside there. But we definitely got closer to a nice circle there. It was still probably pinched off a little bit, and then kind of had to force it into the parameters so we could, move on to the next maneuver here. So not the best, but definitely a lot better than that first one. Kind of muscling the big turkey bird around the sky is pretty darn difficult to really hit these maneuvers perfectly. So same thing with a loop. We're just doing half of a loop. We're going to set the 45-degree line, down line, and then we're going to roll to our left to bring the aircraft back to wings level on the 45-degree down line. Then we're going to pull back and level off at 15,000 feet for the half Cuban. Now, the thing with a half Cuban that folks will do a lot, and he kind of showed this in our diagram that we've got here, is a lot of times people will come up into the half Cuban, start to get their nose down, and immediately start the roll. We want to try to avoid that, because if we blend the looping part of the half Cuban and the roll part of the half Cuban, that's not going to look very good on the ground. If we can get the loop up, get our nose down, 45-degree down line, upside down, hold it for a second, hesitate, 1,000, 2, 1,000, then roll, then 1,000, 2, 1,000 with our wings level on the 45-degree down line again before we pull back to 15,000. That's going to be looking really, really good on the ground. So if I were to make this diagram for kind of a more of a competition type of aerobatics, I would actually try and move this kind of down a little bit, kind of really show the 45-degree down line upside down. But, of course, it is just Navy flying, and you don't need to have perfect lines for judges on the ground when you're flying a Navy jet in combat. So that's a difference there for sure. So we'll go ahead and get set up. Our fuel's starting to get a little bit low. Kind of worried about that, but we'll do the best we can here.
Nose pointed back toward the ground at 45 degrees nose down. Stop your pull, neutralize the stick for a moment, then roll wings level in either direction. The objective is to finish the maneuver on the opposite cardinal heading from the one began. Again, you've got to finish at the same altitude and the same airspeed, but heading in the opposite direction. You ready to go half Cuban? Okay, hit it.
All right, cool. So Paco's definitely on the same page here as us in the front seat. He wants us to neutralize that stick for a moment on that 45-degree down line as we're upside down. It's just not depicted quite as well on the diagram here. So we'll go ahead and we'll get back onto our parameters to start the maneuver. Okay, beautiful.
Ivan 1, continue reference 060, stand by targeting Ivan 1.
Cool. Keeping our eye on the horizon, making sure that our wings are nice and level.
Reference 060, Ivan 3.
We're going to start to float over the top. Float, 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 float. Float, 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 float. We're just going to eyeball a 45-degree down line. Neutralize the stick. And roll. And good. Kept it on the peak back there. We're going to start to pull. And we kind of finished a little bit high there.
Nicely done. Now for the famous Immelman.
All right, guys, so let's talk about what kind of happened on that one there. So we did a really good job of kind of setting the downline. The HUD of the F-14 said we were on a 30-degree downline, but it was close enough. A lot of times, depending on the aircraft and whatnot, when you're looking at it from the ground, judges can't tell whether or not you're at 45 degrees pointed down or not. And our instructor in the back seat's definitely going to not be able to tell if we are actually at 45 degrees down. The key to the half Cuban is to make sure that you set the downline, roll, and set a new downline to make sure that you are making the maneuver look good from the ground. The actual specifics of getting the perfect 45 degrees down, not quite as important, but of course we did mess that part up. So we could have gotten a better score on that one, but Paco liked it, so we'll move on to the Immelman.
Basically, the first half of the loop. Same setup for the airspeed and altitude. 4G pull until you hit 15 units. Hold that until you're inverted, heading in the opposite opposite direction, and your nose is 10 degrees above the horizon. Stop the pull, neutralize the stick for a moment, and roll wings level in either direction. You should finish up going in the opposite direction. It's just half a loop, stop and roll. Ready, gentlemen? Go.
Roger.
All right, let's do it. Come on, get down to 15,000. We got traffic over there. Want to make sure we're well clear of that traffic before we attempt this maneuver. All right, and 3, 2, 1, and burners. 2 hands on the stick. Look out to the side. Horizon's looking good. I don't see it moving. Pull, 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 and float. Ease off on the stick. Look back to the front of the jet. See the horizon. And left stick, left rudder. Over-rotated a bit there. Yeah, the Tomcat's definitely very sensitive on the rudders. A little too much rudder there.
Next, you do the back half of the implement, the split S. Start at 22K, 200 knots on a cardinal heading. Pull the power at mill, first roll inverted, neutralize, then pull to 15 units. As your airspeed and G increase, pull to 4 Gs and modulate throttles to roll out in the opposite direction at 15K and 350 knots. Piece of cake. You ready? Go.
Cool. So it wants us to start the maneuver at 200 knots. And that's important there. You never want to start a split S from too fast of an airspeed. I'm sure many of you guys out there who fly in DCS have accidentally crashed themselves into the ground while performing a split S as a last-ditch maneuver when you have a bandit on your 6 o'clock. Split S's can be very scary and incredibly dangerous because you build up airspeed so quickly. And then if you're not pulling hard enough, you're going to hit the ground no matter what. But if you pull too hard, you're going to over-G the airplane. Or more importantly, well, I guess just as equally important, you could over-G yourself and you could find yourself in a G-lock situation with your nose pointed down to the ground as your airspeed is ever increasing. So a split S can go hairy very quickly. We want to be very careful about that. So that's why Paco is having us slow to 200 knots at 22,000 feet, which seems slow to start a maneuver in the Tomcat, but you'll see that we will definitely get our airspeed way back up to 350 knots in a hurry. So 3, 2, 1, here we go. So we're on 180 degrees. We'll start slowing down, pop a little air breakage, looking for 200 indicated here, a little bit lower than 22,000, getting that nose up there. Looking for, there's 22,000 feet, looking for 200 knots indicated. All right. Mill power, roll, pull, kind of corkscrewed a bit. Modulate our stick pull a little bit here to finish, finishing a little slow, but on altitude.
Okay, nicely done. Now to finish up, we're going to put those last few maneuvers.
So on that one, I made the critical error of not starting the backside of the loop by looking out to the left or the right-hand side of the aircraft. I personally like looking to the left side of the aircraft better, and especially looking away from the sun here. Looking out to the side of the aircraft while you're doing a vertical maneuver, whether that be a split S, an implement, or a loop, is going to be very helpful because you'll be able to see whether or not your wings are rocking very easily based off of the horizon going up or down, and thus you can correct it very easily. Also, again, I did not take my own advice on that one, and I used one hand on the stick, and because I used one hand on the stick, I rolled the jet slightly to the left as I was pulling back, which is always going to happen if you only use one hand on the stick because of our physiology. With having a stick in the center, when you pull back on the stick, a lot of times you introduce a little bit of left stick as well, completely unintentionally. So, and two hands on the stick really prevents that. So let's see how we can do with a squirrel cage here. Loop into a half Cuban, Immelman, and split S. So let's see if we can remember that. Loop, half Cuban, Immelman, split S. All right, let's see if we can do it.
Together into what's called a squirrel cage. You'll start with a loop, go right into a half Cuban, no pause into an Immelman, then finish up with the split S. No stopping between maneuvers. You've got to begin and finish at our standard speed and angels, 15K and 350 knots. Pick a cardinal heading, make sure you keep your proper G, AOA, and roll control throughout the full maneuvers. Hit 15K and 350 at the bottom each time. Ready to bang out a squirrel cage? Alright, let's go.
So I'm not going to worry too much about finishing each maneuver at exactly 15K and 350 knots, because not being able to feel the jet in DCS here is going to make that really difficult, in my opinion. So we'll see what we can do. We just want to start at 15K. Let's see if we can finish at 350 at 15K, though. Okay, what's our fuel state? Okay, so hopefully this is one of our last maneuvers, because we are getting dangerously low on gas here. Blowers. And two hands on the stick, and pulling. Horizon's looking good. And we're gonna float. Float, spud, float, looking good. A little bit of right stick, looking good. Check the altitude, check the airspeed, looking good. Oh, it kind of rolled a little bit there. Into the half Cuban. We're going to set a new line to distinctly set the maneuvers. Now into the half Cuban. Out to the side. Pull. And float. And we're going to set the down line. We're going to hesitate and roll. And hesitate, and check the altitude, and pull. A little fast. Pull back on the stick, and into the Immelman. Looking out to the side, back into burners.
I mean, I checked box. You have a two-ship off your 6 at 30,000.
Came off the line. We're kind of corkscrewing it a bit. And here we go. It's going to be roll. And then into a split S. Pull back on the power. And roll. And pull. Back to full mill. Coming down. Looking at the altitude here. Altitude's looking good. Airspeed's a little off though. And back. We corkscrewed that a ton. Holy crap. And, okay, so let's talk about that. So, at least I got the sequence of maneuvers correctly. I was really happy with the loop, really happy with the half Cuban. And by the time we finished the half Cuban, I may have held the 45 down line in full blowers for too long, but I wanted to try and get back down to that 15,000 feet. And we ended up overspeeding in our maneuver here pretty badly. And so thus, it kind of just went a little bit downhill from there. I was trying to make sure to get my head back out to the horizon there. There's not all that much in the Tomcat in terms of really helping you see the horizon well and keeping the jet right, without corkscrewing and keeping it on heading really well. I don't recommend looking at the heading tape on the HUD. I think looking out to the side is definitely going to be the right option for you. And let's see here. What else can we talk about? Yeah, it came off the heading, so just really corkscrewed it pretty badly. But I'm pretty darn happy with how it turned out. I mean, we're only, probably 30 knots over speed and only 1,000 feet off in DCS when we can't feel the jet at all. I'm pretty happy with that. That actually went pretty darn well. But we could definitely improve. So let's see what the next part is. Probably a mock run.
We're down to basic aerobatics for the moment. We're going to move into some slow speed handling, so turn off the roll SAS. We're going to do a few high AAM maneuvers. True stick and rudder mastery is really critical to being a good Tomcat pilot. The next maneuver is the high AOA flat scissors practice. Slow speed, high alpha competence is just as important as the vertical and horizontal maneuvers we do. The goal is to get so slow the other plane flushes out in front, and you win the fight. Understood. We'll set up at 15K, 220 knots. Pull the nose up to about 60 degrees at low power. As the speed comes down to 180 knots, start feeding in the burners. But remember, the goal is to fly forward as slowly as possible. Keep that nose parked up high. As the airspeed decays, lower the nose to keep the speed around 100 knots. It's all rudders from here. If you move the stick too far in either direction, the spoilers will pop up on that wing and kill you. You'll know you're doing it right when the stick is all the way back, neutral laterally, and your boots are dancing on the rudders. See how slow you can get moving forward. A slick B might be able to get down about 100 knots. Got it. Once you're comfortable moving in a straight line at high AOA and slow airspeed, feed in a little rudder to initiate a turn. Just a little is all you need. Remember, no lateral stick movement. That just kills lift off the wings. When you get the turn you want, feed rudder in the opposite direction to stop it. When you get comfortable, weave your weight back and forth in an S pattern. This will further decrease your downrange travel and increase the chance the opponent will flush out ahead of you.
Cool.
Yes, sir. You ready to go? Alright, stick back and get that nose up. Power to mill as we climb. Burner, once the climb stops, keep the nose up. Keep slowing down. Yes, sir.
Alright. Keep the wings level. Keep the nose back. Full aft stick. Burners.
Control 3225.
Want to maintain 100 knots. We can't hold it.
If it's going to be the same,
Mess this one up.
Razor 31 direct Tambo 250. Could you 25 affirmative? That would be for all receivers coming up to you today. 25 copy, thanks.
There we go. Now we got it kind of more stabilized out. Kind of dancing on the rudders here.
Got it? Alright, let's get the rudder going now. Stick in your lap, neutral laterally. A little rudder to change
Alright, I
heading.
can't hold it anymore.
Opposite rudder to get back to wing level. Rudder in the opposite direction to turn the other way. Easy with the controls. Work it back and forth.
I'm gonna run out of fuel. 5,000 pounds in a Tomcat. Oof, I'm not making it back home today. Nice and gentle this time. Oh! Wow, she's been extra squirrely today. My last run-throughs, it was not this bad.
Alright, nicely done. Let's
Okay.
get the roll cast back on and do one of my favorite demonstration maneuvers. The zoom climb is super fun and shows just how powerful this beast is. We are a rad-configured F-14B. No tanks, no rails, big-ass engines. As close to a rocket ship as the Navy owns. For this next demo, I want you to get on the deck at 200 feet AGL, 450 knots, and when you're ready, hold 4 Gs into the vertical as you plug in the burners. Once you're 90 degrees nose up, unload the stick a little to keep the nose at pure vertical, then just ride the rocket. Once the airspeed hits 200 knots, gently pull the 15 units and roll onto your back inverted. Stabilize, and then roll upright in either direction. Let's see how high we can get this, baby.
Alright, so of course, the time I try to actually do it on camera here, I just absolutely, horrifically mess that maneuver up. And last time I did it, it was pretty fun and it worked pretty darn well. But oh well, I'm not going to worry about it because we have not enough gas to worry about this. The good thing is we're heading south at this point, so back towards Nellis. And I'm just kind of letting the jet coast at idle here, coming down to our desired altitude and airspeed, because I am seriously worried about our fuel state at this point. Alright, coming on down. I'm surprised that Paco even said nice job. That was not a nice job. That was a failure on that, that's for sure. I think I might have accidentally had the autopilot on while trying to attempt that, which is definitely not the way to make that work, that's for sure. Okay, 450 knots, 200 feet AGL. Got some undulating terrain here, so we'll do the best we can with the 200 feet AGL. There's 450 knots. I'm going to keep that southerly heading.
Ready to zoom? Let's hit it.
All
Here we
right.
go.
Look out to the side to make sure that we're pulling back evenly on the stick. And whoop, there's 90 knots, or 90 degrees straight up. A little forward stick. We're a little bit positive on this 90-degree upline. 200 knots. Come on, come on, come on, come on. And there's 250. And here comes 200. And whoop, onto the back. Pulling out of burners because I am way too low on gas at this point. And then Immelman. Roll, 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 roll. Forward on the stick because the Tomcat likes to climb after the roll. And not so bad. That was kind of fun. Came up to, holy crap, 28,000 feet.
For a couple mock runs.
A couple, huh? I don't have any gas for a couple of those. 25,000 feet, 350 knots indicated. Let's come back around. I'm going to make sure we're pointed south at this point. Where are we? Beautiful. And we've got a tanker traffic up here as well to watch out for. There's south. 25,000 feet, 350 knots coming up. A little bit of nose down trim. Probably overusing my rudders today. I don't know why I'm so happy on my feet today. Alright, 25,000 feet-ish. Speeding her up. Doing better on gas than I have in my previous attempts on this mission, so we'll see how we do here. Good thing is we're heading south towards Nellis, and hopefully we'll stay on that line throughout our mock runs.
Okay, ready. Once you're ready, unload slightly to about 0.5 Gs and full blower. The unloaded Tomcat accelerates much faster. Let's get up to about Mach 1.3 and do a few easy turns. With the wings all the way back, it's just the differential elevators doing all the work. Roger.
Awesome. So something there that a lot of DCS World players can learn a lot from in this training campaign is especially just unloading the jet, and unloading the jet past 1G to half a G here will allow you to accelerate so much faster. And that's pretty much a good rule of thumb for almost all the other jets in DCS. So if you're in a dogfight situation where you're just like, oh man, this is not going my way, I am about to die, your last ditch attempt to run away and disengage from the dogfight and go home to fight another day is just unload the jet, half a G, maybe even 0 G, coming down towards the ground, and just speed up as fast as you can to get out of there. Also, another really good way to say get out of the engagement envelope of, say, a long-range SAM. If you've been fired on by a long-range SAM and we're way up high like this and we just have no idea where that SAM's coming from, we don't see the launch, we can see it in our RWR, and that's it, is to unload the jet, get as fast as you can going away from that SAM site, and just get as low as you can as fast as possible that way. So this is a skill that is definitely going to come in handy to all of you guys that'll be taught to you in this campaign, which is awesome. All right, full burners, unload, 0.5 G. Here we go, accelerate to Mach 1.3. I'm going to cheat a little bit here. Okay, so that's 0 G, there's half a G right there. Mach 1, a little more forward stick. There's 1.2. Oh, there goes all my gas. There's 1.3 coming up, there it is. I'm gonna pull her back to mill.
Easy on the stick, no rudder. Let's make a 45-degree turn to the right, then level the wings, then return back to the left. Roger.
So we're really flying the cross here. We don't want to be pulling too hard either direction. And we'll roll her back to 180 degrees. That wasn't 45 degrees, so that's my mistake. I'm over anxious about my fuel state at this point.
Okay, done for today. Nice first hop. We got a great sense of how the F-14B maneuvers throughout the entire envelope. As we move through the syllabus, we'll continue to get more comfortable with this beast.
Yes, sir.
Alright, that was fun.
Alright, exercise complete. Let's head to Stucky's Peak and I'll call Blackjack.
Okay. Well, I got 2,300 pounds left. I think we will actually make it this time. Are we south of Stucky's Peak? We are way south of Stucky's Peak. I think for the sake of the campaign, the way it's scripted, we gotta turn around now.
Maintain flight level 210 till on range. Delta range altimeter is 3008. Clear scheduled. Clear tactical.
Question cycle.
I could push 16.
Alright. Heading back to Stucky's Peak.
We're in a 2+2+2 formation, cleared to rejoin to the lead element. Flanker 7, route right side. Flanker 8, route left side.
Flanker 7, will come. You fence out while I call Blackjack. Check our fuel state, check hydraulics, check engine instruments, make sure nothing's leaking and all systems are operating normally. Roger.
Well, everything looks pretty good to me. Whoop.
Blackjack, gunfighter
Fuel
1-1,
low, bingo. Yep.
We're complete in the South 4, ready for RTB. Gunfighter 1-1, Blackjack, copy. Radar contact, proceed direct to ARCO, contact approach. Gunfighter 1-1, switching.
Direct to Arco. Alright.
ARCO is our waypoint 3. Pass at 15,000 feet and I'll contact approach.
Yes, sir.
Alright, good thing is we're only 18 miles from Arco. 15,000 feet. Heading 165 down to Apex there. Now, it's going to have a really hard time identifying Arco based off of the 355 radial for LSV, so we'll go ahead and leave that, and that's going to be the 025 radial we're going to be intercepting to fly inbound into LSV for the landing. We'll do that, so let's go ahead and set LSV real quick on our TACAN. And if I remember right, it's something like 12 X-ray, but we will verify that.
High-tech initial for traffic.
And we'll just coast down gently to 15,000.
Just in case I get to 7,500. Okay.
So LSV 12. Okay. Oop, don't want gesture. I'll come down here. Cool. Got that set. 025 radial. So we want 025 on the bottom for this time. So we want 025. Beautiful. And we are set and ready to rock and roll. Good thing is it's 15,000 or above, so I'm not going to be worried too much about really busting my butt to get down there to 15,000 within 3 nautical miles, which would be quite the descent rate. And then what's our heading afterwards? Heading 165. Okay, we can make that work. I'm cautiously optimistic about our fuel. There we go.
Gunfighter 1-1, radar contact.
Coming left to 165.
Expect the carrier break runway 21, right-hand
Alright, we're going to intercept at 4,500 feet.
Gunfighter 1-1, copy all.
Kind of came through our heading a bit there.
Towards Apex, which is stored as our IP. You want to pass it at 4,500 feet MSL as we set up for the initial. Switch to HUD to landing mode and make sure the HUD bypass switch is set to field. Otherwise, the indexer lights will flash in order to warn you to lower the hook.
Alright.
Okay, got it.
And we'll switch over to TACAN navigation, and we will intercept our inbound radial. And make sure we're at Apex at 4,500 feet. Cool. 1,600 pounds of gas left. That's way below what is comfortable, but we'll make it work. Change up our heading a little bit here.
November 5588 Papa, radar contact 5 miles northeast of North, clear through Las Vegas, France, Bravo airspace, we have present heading.
There's Bravo airspace, maintain current heading, Mayday Papa.
Number 206, maintain 7,000. Number 80 Papa, maintain 6,500 for traffic.
The good thing is this approach should, in our VFR, should keep us below the Bravo airspace for McCarran Airport, so it shouldn't be a problem there.
Keep an eye out for that traffic, Mayday Papa.
Gonna increase our descent. Really husbanding our fuel levels here. Once we get down to about 300 pounds of gas on our gauge here, that's when our engines are going to flame out. So we want to make sure that doesn't happen, of course. Alright, and Paco in the back seat's going to be reporting Apex to the tower. We're going to cross LSV at 4,000 MSL and 3,500 MSL for our initial into Nellis Air Force Base. That is for the Air Force geeks, so I wonder if they are going to allow us to descend further for more of a carrier break at 800 feet AGL. Guess we'll see. Alright, I've got the field in sight, so that's perfect. What's our altitude? What's our distance? 3 miles. I think we'll be okay. Just gonna cheat a little over towards where our INS is showing ARCO to be. Oh, perfect. Thanks, Approach.
Gunfighter 1-1, switching.
Nice.
Nellis Tower, Gunfighter 1-1, Apex for the carrier break. Full stop.
Gunfighter 1-1, Nellis Tower, report 3 mile initial for runway 21 right.
Gunfighter 1-1, we'll go.
Right, I guess
Let's
we'll...
set up the initial on runway 21 right, 2,700 feet, 350 knots, right-hand brake.
Cool.
On downwind, we'll go down to 2,500 feet. Got it.
Alright, so with that,
Okay,
we are
switch the
on
wing all the way back.
our radial from LSV.
We'll go.
Wings are coming back. 2,700 feet, 350 knots. Fuel's looking like we can make it. Paco is not going to be happy about how much fuel we have once we get on the ground. Surprised he hasn't said anything in the back seat there. And for 2,700 feet, we're coming down. Gotta lose another 1,000 feet here. A little fast. Wings are fully back. That's checked. 350 knots coming up.
Gunfighter 1-1, clear for the overhead, clear to land, runway 21 right.
Gunfighter 1-1, clear to land, 21 right.
There's 27. Beautiful. It's nice having the guy in the back seat do all the talking on the radio for once. All right.
Halfway down the runway, brake right, and pop the speed brakes. As the speed descends below 300, move the wing switch to auto. Drop the gear at 250, and the flaps and DLC at 220. You remember that landing checklist?
I do. And in the brake. Oh, a little overbanked there. Wings coming forward.
Nice break, wings are coming forward.
On the reciprocal heading. Rolling out. Flaps. DLC. There we go. Not super clean. Little about 100 feet off on my altitude. Overbanked on the brake itself. What's the problem here? Wheels? Thank you. Not too worried about the E-bracket. I'm more going for my AOA indexer.
Wings are 20 auto, gears down, stops on, flaps full, DLC engaged and checked. Hook up, front locked, boards out, spoiler brake selected, fuel checked.
Good. Now descend to 2,500 feet and fly downwind parallel to the runway.
Okay.
That radio call was a little bit late. What am I doing? Climbing on my base turn? Everything's feeling really stable right now, so I'm feeling really happy about that. Starting to get into orange donut territory here. I like it. We're starting to float a little bit. That's what we got the DLC for. And we're kind of far from the runway on our downwind. Probably too far if we were actually landing on a carrier. But we got ourselves a nice orange donut. Bordering on our red chevron. I'd rather be closer to the red chevron than closer to the green. There we go. Just a hair of DLC to pop that out there. And we got our wind is right down the pipe. I believe Bravo should still be current at the moment. Coming in, just nice and gentle with the controls. Nice and gentle on everything we do in our Tomcat. Slight overshoot of the runway. That's okay. We'll make it work. A little bit of DLC to get us down within the touchdown zone. Right in our orange donut. I feel like the AOA indexer and the E-bracket and the HUD corresponds better to each other in the F-14B than it does in the F-14A. We're a little left of center line. We're correcting. And... oh, that was a little rough. Full aft stick for some aero braking with those big old vertical or horizontal stabs. A little bit of right stick to keep us on the center line. Nose wheel steering's on. Pulling in the speed brakes. Nice, that was fun. Actually pleasantly surprised by how well I did those maneuvers. The squirrel cage was a little bad. The high AOA stuff I just goofed because I had my autopilot on while trying to attempt those maneuvers. Wow, that was dumb. But other than that, I think it went pretty darn well. I'll probably have to repeat that maneuver in my next training mission here because that was absolutely a fail. But I think I got a pretty good passing grade on everything else. And pretty happy with it. Let's come to a full stop up here, and hopefully we'll get a nice grade from Paco. I guess I probably could have let her roll a little bit longer to get on down to the exit. Alright, instructions from ground, maybe? Alrighty guys, well, I really enjoyed making this video for you guys, and big thanks to Reflected for allowing me to take an early look at his upcoming campaign. It's definitely a very special project, and it's very cool. You guys are going to learn a lot about the Tomcat, a lot about flying, a lot about IFR stuff with these departures and arrivals, learn a lot about flying the Tomcat around the boat. It's just really awesome that Reflected could put together such an amazing project for us to all learn so much, as well as just enjoy a fun story and enjoy a fun, really good time in the Tomcat. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe for more, and we'll see you in the next one. So fly safe out there, guys, and enjoy this beautiful game.